latest episode of the Rebel Radio podcast, and we got a full crew tonight. Long, welcome to a return to the show.
It's Emperor
to
you, sir.
I can't even call you a guest because you're like, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you're part of the crew, even if you're on extended hiatus. I think one day you'll come back around and be like, I got to join you guys again. I just had this feeling. Yeah. You get bored watching porn on Friday nights and be like, yeah, I got to join the fellas. So, it'll happen.
I like turtles.
Turtles are cool. And how you been, man?
I've been good. It's 3 more weeks of December, and they'll all be over.
Yeah, it's a rough time of the month for your business.
For all of us.
Well, true, but like for me though, it's only like it's not 3 or 4 weeks spread out like it's for y'all. For me, it's basically like a week and a half, and then it's all over. I'm on vacation starting at the afternoon of December 22nd, so
that's so unheard of.
Yeah,
for us.
Luckily, I have a good.
We have vacation blackouts from mid-November through December. Back in the old days, it used to be October through December, 10 years ago. So now they cut it. So I don't know. Maybe it's craft beer that's been eating into the sales. Who knows?
Yeah.
But then again, craft beer is kind of dying down too.
It is, and maybe it's just too. They realize they can't get all their employees to get vacations in within the first 9 months of the year. So they're like, okay, maybe we should open up a little bit more.
Exactly. Yeah. I remember whenever I was in that industry, same thing. They'd black out like all the major holidays, especially last couple of weeks of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Just not doing it right. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
But man, good man. I'm glad you came on the show today, man. It's going to be a fun show. We're going to discuss the featured film this week, and then discuss a film we all saw in theaters over the last week and a half or so.
Yeah,
and,
I know that texting it won't justify it.
And a few other tidbits of information on today's show, but it's good you're back, man. As we're winding down 2023, we got a couple of episodes left after this, and we'll be doing our top 5 movies of the year in the last episode in a couple of weeks, and closing it out with our annual Batman Christmas movie. And so it's gonna be a good year to the end of 2023, and then we'll trek on to 2024 for some more podcasts. The 10th anniversary of the podcast is in 2024, so that's pretty wild.
Yeah,
hard to believe. And but if you ever miss any episodes, you can find everything at the rebelradiopodcast.com. That's where you can find all the cool shit for this show.
Rebel Radio Podcast.
10 years, dude. I mean, we're going to do a big 10th anniversary show sometime in late April, early May. And we'll have a few people back on that episode besides just Long. We might even invite the friend or the ex-host, Frank, might even get to come back for that one. Who knows? That could be some shenanigans. So,
do we still know where Dago Nick is?
That was from the really old Rebel Radio.
Yeah. Is he in Burbank, New Jersey, or?
I think he's probably in prison somewhere.
Oh yeah, probably.
That's a blast from the past. Man, that's crazy. But yeah, man. Let's just get into things, man. Let's go, man. We'll get into the movie we saw in just a minute, man. But I did want to. I started watching the live action One Piece. I don't know why. I just felt like watching it, and my God, it's kind of stupid, but it's one of those shows. It's so entertaining. I can't stop watching it. Like, it's really entertaining for the most part. It's just some of the dialogue sometimes you're like, oh, that's not the best dialogue. But I've never really watched the anime other than the little bits and pieces of it that my kids have watched.
It's still ongoing.
And it's like 19 seasons. But the live action show is a lot of fun. It's kind of a borderline CW-ish type show with like crazy action, but also a lot of really interesting characters. I don't know, man. I'm about halfway through it. It's only like 8 episodes. I think I'm on episode 5. And I guess it's just kind of out of pure boredom right now with not much else to watch right now. Other than Monarch, which I've still only watched the first episode. I need to get caught up on that. But man, I don't know. It's cool, man. I can see why it appeals to the kids. You know, I can see why it's very, very popular. And if the anime is anything like the live action show, then I definitely see why this thing has been going on for 20 something years, you know, and it's crazy, man, for a show to last that long. Mm-hmm. And it's been like, it's had like 4 different studios have ran it over the years. That's nuts. I think it's owned by Toho again now, but it's wild how it's had different studios have owned it and kept it going. Never heard of it, anime like that. That's pretty wild. But I've been watching that, man, and then I watched on Disney Plus, Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny hit Disney Plus. So I watched the documentary they put out, Timeless Heroes, Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones, and this is good stuff, man. There's Indiana Jones footage and things in there I've never seen before. Really, one of the best looks I've seen at who Harrison is behind the scenes and the type of person he is and the way he makes movies and really good, man. If you're an Indiana Jones or Harrison Ford fan, it's a must watch because some of the Disney Plus documentaries have been kind of hit or miss. We talked about that before. Some of them are okay and some of them aren't, but this might be one of the best ones I've seen them do since they've started doing these documentaries on Disney Plus. Really, really well done documentary about Harrison Ford and his career and everything. So highly recommend watching that on Disney Plus. And those are the 2 main things I kind of watched this week, besides the movie we all saw in theaters we're going to discuss in a few minutes. But Long, I'm going to give you the floor, man, other than Godzilla, man, in a minute. What have you been checking out lately since you ain't been on the show in a while?
I've been checking out Monarch. I'm pretty current on it. I'm on episode 5. Just finished up episode 5.
5 is the latest, right?
Yeah. And it's still a slow burn. Kurt Russell is pretty good, and it, you know, I still don't know. I don't know what direction this show's going. I don't know what the characters are doing, except for trying to find this, you know, what 2 people trying to find their fathers, right? Their father, and just 1 or 2 glimpses of Godzilla here and there, and 1 or 2 monster shots here and there, but it's more of a mystery human drama thing. It's all right so far. It's not really setting the world on fire yet. It's episode 5 now. I'm starting to lose patience with it, to be quite honest.
Isn't it 10 episodes, I think?
Yeah, it's 10 episodes. What else? Been watching a lot of anime. Bunch of sequel seasons here and there. Spy Family, if you ever see it across any of your feeds, I highly recommend it. It's a wonderful, entertaining little anime about this little family. You have one girl who's a psychic who can read minds. You have the father figure who's like the number 1 spy in the country. And then you have the mother who's like one of the deadliest assassins in the world, and they're all trying to keep it a secret from each other.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, keep their alternative lives or abilities. Yeah. The girl is adopted, you know, and so, but Spy Family, check it out. It's really entertaining. Very well animated. It's clean too. It's not a very like some anime are with a fan service and panty shots or whatever. But I highly recommend. It's in the 2nd season. But don't worry, there's a bunch of Rule 34 stuff on the mother figure on the internet. What's the last major movie I saw? I didn't go to the theaters for Indiana Jones or the Marvels or
I hadn't been in the theater in 3-4 months until I saw Minus One the other day.
Yeah. But before we talk about that movie, what about you, Matt? You saw what?
I
saw Kinnaman movie.
Yeah, I saw Silent Night.
Yeah, so I'm very jealous of that since being a big John Woo fan. And
it's been getting a lot of mixed reviews, which I was surprised.
I've read that I've read that old school Woo fans like it a lot.
Yeah.
But I've read that movie critics just really don't, which whatever. John Woo's never made movies for the critics, you know.
Exactly. And I think, it's a movie that you guys, I mean, it's so fast paced. And it does have a shorter runtime than some of these movies that have come out as of late. So if you're like been going to the theaters this year and you go and see this movie, you're like, oh, that kind of went by quick. And that's because it has a shorter runtime than a lot
like
of
an hour
these
and 40
movies.
minutes, I think I read.
Yeah. I feel like everything in theaters is like closer to 3 hours.
Yeah, it's movies this year.
Yeah. So it does feel faster. But the Joel does a really good job. Just obviously with the action, with the emotional stuff his character goes through. And Woo does his thing. It's definitely entertaining. I think you're gonna like it if you're a Woo fan. If you're a Woo fan, like Hard Boiled, Better Tomorrow, I think you're gonna like it.
I have an opportunity next Friday maybe to see it. Maybe my mom might be able to get the kids for me and go after work.
Yeah, man, so. It's definitely go see it. Other than that, I did get caught up on Invincible season 2. I do like that animated series on Prime. We're left with a cliffhanger for season 3, so not sure when that's going to come out. But if you haven't watched Invincible, it's friggin' brutal and crazy.
Which is that show, which I find very strange.
I remember you telling me that. It's entertaining, man. I like it. I like all the different superheroes and Omni-Man and how it would basically give you a more realistic version of Superman versus the Justice League in that fight at the end of the first episode, season 1. It's just friggin' brutal. Got eyeballs popping out of sockets and stuff. It's crazy. It's like an animated The Boys almost, But yeah, other than that, I think it was just Godzilla.
Well, I want to back up just for a moment. Yeah. It's crazy. Just to back up to Silent Night, I was reading that Wu was asking why he casted Kinnaman, because Kinnaman's known but not super known, and he was saying that like he was the only one he felt that conveyed any emotion when he auditioned for basically a silent movie with no dialogue. Yeah, and there's war rumors that Cage has worked with Wu before, auditioned for this film. Guys that worked with Wu, Ben Affleck has apparently auditioned. Apparently, a lot of big actors auditioned for this film. But Kinnaman gave the best audition. And plus, I think the studio also made the movie for a little bit smaller budget. And I imagine guys like Affleck and Cage would have cost them too much money.
Yeah.
So that might have been some saying it. But it's crazy. Wu said he wanted to come back to Hollywood and do a smaller budget film. And I'm glad he's back, and apparently his next film on his slate, he still wants to reimagine his own classic. He wants to redo The Killer with an American cast, which I think is a wild idea because
I prefer Hard Boiled over The Killer.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah.
But I think The Killer is good, but I prefer Hard Boiled. But that's a wild idea to have a director reimagine his own film.
Yeah.
I was thinking, has that ever been done before?
I don't think so. Not with the same director.
Yeah, that's crazy. I've never heard of that. I'm sure it probably has.
Were there any doves in Silent Night?
You'll have to see for yourself.
I don't really want to, but okay.
You don't want to.
No, not after the high of the movie we're about to discuss.
I have heard there's definitely some Wu stuff in it, though. I've heard the Mexican standoff is in it and a couple other things. So,
yeah. The classic shots that Wu takes, it's like it's all there.
I'm all for it, man. That's my favorite director of all time, so I'll be there to see it. Even if I don't see it till it comes home digitally, I'll see it eventually. So, but yeah, man, there's a movie that's tearing up theaters right now. Quite a well opening of $11 million, and the crazy thing about this is I was reading it's been very, for being that kids are still in school and stuff, this movie has had a very consistent week. It's made almost $1 million or a little over every day this week. And to the point where Toho is expanding the theaters this weekend and it's guaranteed to run at least through the 14th.
Yeah.
And that is Godzilla Minus One, which I know Long you saw opening night, Matt saw the second night, and I saw it this past Saturday. And this is the first time for me I've ever seen a Japanese Godzilla film on the big screen in my adult life. I remember when I was a kid, I remember my dad taking me to see one or two of them back in the day. But it's been a long time since I've seen one other than the American films. And man, what a theatrical experience this was, man. This is a remarkably well done film for not just for a foreign language film, but for a monster movie.
At only $15 million.
Yeah, $15 million budget.
To put that in perspective, the Halloween movies that have come out the past few years were $25 million.
Right.
And it's like this movie is like shows us more from that budget. Like they got
it's an incredible looking movie for that budget.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I want to just jump on this really quickly is to explain to people that this isn't just a monster movie. It's essentially a PTSD monster movie about a guy going through PTSD and learning to live again.
And redemption.
Throughout all this.
And personal redemption.
Yeah, personal redemption, learning to live again through all this chaos that's going on in post-World War II, dealing with the atomic fallout and dealing with the ensuing Godzilla attacks. And to weave that story around that whole idea, I thought was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, you don't even need Godzilla in this film almost. You take Godzilla out, replace him with a hurricane. This movie still stomps with the story. Yeah.
It helps the film resonate better with its audience, relate to its characters. It was such a pleasure to see a Godzilla film where the human characters aren't throwaways or just scientists making comments for no reason. In fact, the scientist in this movie made a lot of sense. He was really smart.
Yeah, I think he's one of my favorite characters in the film for sure. Noda, Dr. Noda, that was his name. Yeah. Yeah. But
long time Godzilla fan, so I know you've got thoughts on this thing.
Yeah, I think I've said this before. Before I became a Star Wars fan, I was a Star Trek fan. Before I became a Star Trek fan, I was a Godzilla fan.
I apologize for the Star Trek moment there. No, I was kidding.
Oh, okay. But let's see. And I remember the very first Godzilla movie I ever watched was Mothra versus Godzilla from 1964 on television, and that was mesmerizing as a kid. But this movie, man, I liked it so much I saw it again the same weekend just to really let it sink in, and it's actually better the second time around. And the movie seemed to go even quicker. The slow parts, you start picking up on some details, some nuance that you didn't catch the first time. And it's like, oh, okay, that's even deeper,
Yeah.
And it just really, the pacing is very well done, even on the second viewing. And the first viewing, you're just trying to let everything
take it all in.
Yeah, take it all in. But for $15 million, man, Godzilla looks incredible.
Yeah, the visual effects are outstanding.
It's not perfect, but the water scenes are just standout. All the water scenes. Also, some of the city destruction scenes were really good. The characters are very relatable. But yeah, did it kind of hit you a little bit when the little girl cried?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, Wyatt, who's 8 years old, said, "Dad, I got a little emotional at the end of the movie." Yeah. I mean, he even said that, Yeah. The movie definitely has an emotional resonance to it. It hits home for anyone who's had a family or been through any kind of crisis. Because, I mean, we've obviously never been through a monster crisis or a major war, but you can relate. I think that's what's so great about it. You can relate to these characters.
You can understand them. It's like Jake, I took Jake, and whenever the Noriko, the pilot, whenever he was having...
No, that's...
Noriko's the lady.
No,
Noriko's the lady.
Yeah.
But he, the pilot, he was having one of those panic attacks, and my son was like, why is he, why is he so upset? Why is he doing that? And I said, well, Jake, think about it. He feels like he was a coward in a moment where he was supposed to be brave, like 2 times. Once, in 2 instances already, and there was a lot of people that died. I said he probably feels like, why do I get to live when all these other brave men died? Why am I still here? And I'm still afraid. And he doesn't forgive himself. He's got this internal battle, and he's like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I was like, so he's dealing with these demons, and it like does a really good job of conveying that while building this camaraderie around the small boat and all the characters on it, and still tying in the effects of everybody around him and the destruction of Godzilla that he's causing, and then just balancing all of that just perfectly is amazing. I didn't think it could be done. Through all the movies that we've gotten, especially as of late, it feels like they're all, which not bad, badass monster films. That's great, but they're seeing this, films. Popcorn, nothing wrong with popcorn films,
right?
But seeing this, it was just like, wow, they were able to do this. Could have got this the whole time.
Godzilla was truly terrifying and menacing. I mean, his atomic breath was lethal. He didn't care what he was doing. I also loved the nods to the classic Godzilla where he's standing up straight and walking slow. I thought that was brilliant. Yeah. The mix of the new theme with the classic Godzilla theme, the musical score in this film was fantastic too.
Yes,
it really added to the ambience of the movie.
Yeah,
yes,
that was the first time I actually was like afraid of Godzilla, like because you're like you care for the characters and you're like, okay, please live, it's like, okay, Godzilla, step the other way, walk slower, and it's like, it's like, don't kill my characters that I like already.
I was glad, minor spoiler here, but I was glad the movie had a happy ending because it's one of those movies, the way it was headed, I was like, oh man, come on, don't let that happen. Because after all this death and destruction, I would have been pretty disappointed. I was really satisfied with the happy ending. I was like, thank you for giving us this. Because so many movies lately want to end in despair and sadness. And it's okay to have happy endings in Hollywood. It's Hollywood. Hollywood was made off happy endings originally. But in the last trend of the last 30 years of Hollywood, it's like, let's end these movies depressingly, So it's great to see a movie that had a happy ending.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I went to the theaters the second time to watch that ending again more carefully. And the second time around, spoiler alert for who haven't seen it, when Noriko is alive and hugging, you go into that shot of her neck, and that's that black mark on the back of her neck. That black mark was moving. So the scar that she had, that black mark, that scar, it was moving. It was kind of like twitching a little bit. It's like, wait a minute. It's like, because I could have sworn I saw something about it that was a little odd. And then the second time I watched it, that scar on the back of her neck was moving up and down. It's like, okay, so they did mention that the area that Godzilla went through had a lot of his tissue found in that area, and unknown substance or properties, and so who knows, she might have died but regenerated. So that's a kind of a big hint. Wow. But it's like that scene where the first scene where Godzilla, the water scene where they were in a mine layer, and what's interesting is that scene was pretty suspenseful when he was chasing them and they were dropping mines around him. That was a really cool scene. They said that they used up so much storage on the water effects alone.
I bet. I really felt like that was a big homage to Jaws too, in some ways.
Yeah. They did. It's like, I don't know if any part of it's practical at all, but a good CGI is when you question if they used any kind of a live prop or something to get that effect going.
Yeah.
But they used actual historical warships as well. The Takao was an actual warship, and it was stationed in Singapore, about to be decommissioned at that time.
Wow.
And then the main destroyer that they were on at the very end was the Yukikaze, which is an actual warship that was considered a very lucky ship because it survived all the major Pacific War battles in World War II. Yeah, so there are some pretty cool historical nods there as well. But yeah, it's a full-on celebration about how, it's a very optimistic movie despite the dark themes too.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, and the resilience of the human spirit, which I liked. It wasn't.
I really liked that too. It wasn't just another movie where we see the military try to blow them away. I thought the idea of the scientists coming up with a plan and the citizens interacting the plan, I really, really liked that. I enjoyed that. And it made sense as a viewer, like the scientific aspects of like, oh, as a viewer, I bought it. I'm like, oh, this could work. You know? And I think it was great,
Yeah. That's a very, I mean, they didn't have anything else to use.
Right.
They didn't have any bombs or torpedoes. They had mines, but they found out that it didn't work. The regeneration scene of his face was pretty cool.
That was cool. It absolutely blows my mind this movie was made for $15 million because it looks as most awesome as, I mean, we did Alita Battle Angel last week, which is a $210 million movie. This movie looks just as good, if not better in parts,
Yeah.
I can't argue with that.
I just go on and on about the film. The first Godzilla theme they used was from Mothra vs. Godzilla. And then the second classic theme they used was from the Godzilla vs. King Kong, or King Kong vs. Godzilla in 1962 version. So, I give it a 9 personally.
Yeah, where does this rank for you in your all-time?
It's I think it's number 1. It's like it's shot up number 1 because it's so relatable. It had perfect balance of human drama and monster action. Godzilla was terrifying. Really, I mean, it's just such a multi-layered film to it too. But I definitely like it. It's definitely number 1 out of all the movies I've seen.
On HBO Max, I started watching the original 1954, which I've seen once, but it's been a long time since I've seen it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try to finish it sometime this week and kind of get some more thoughts on the original compared to the latest incarnation that we have,
Yeah.
And
that one's always in the people's top 5, the original.
Yeah. And, but I definitely enjoyed this a lot more than Shin Godzilla. Shin Godzilla is just so slow.
Yeah, it's a satire.
And it's really
political
weird
satire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Toho hasn't given any confirmation, but I think they kind of, from what I've read, they felt they didn't know where to go next after Shin Godzilla, so they kind of decided to reboot it again with Minus One. And that's why this movie exists, and I'm certainly glad it does. I mean,
the director today has outright said that he has a sequel in mind and he wants to do it. Yeah. And really, he's earned it. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah. Toho has announced that, as long as people keep buying, we'll keep selling it in screens. So they extended it another week.
Not only was this movie made for $15 million, I read somewhere that it was shot like in 35 days.
Really?
I guess they work really quickly, over in some of their films. That's why a lot of their movies are kept under budget and kept, that's crazy. But I mean, I guess it's not too crazy. A lot of American films are 35 to 60 days also.
Oh yeah.
So, I guess that's
30,
not too...
35 to 60.
Yeah. Pretty common for a film.
Yeah.
But I hope he gets to make a sequel. And, he said his dream job is he would love Lucasfilm to call him. He wants to make a Star Wars movie.
Yeah. He said that's what inspired him to get into film business.
Yeah. Star Wars. That's wild.
But I don't know. The bureaucracy in that organization is just mind-boggling from what I've heard. Yeah. But with Dave Filoni at the helm, who knows?
Hopefully
anything can happen.
The ship starts getting righted. Yeah. But Godzilla Minus One, if you get a chance to go see this in theaters, go see it. It's definitely a big screen experience.
I don't want Lucasfilm calling him up before he's done writing the sequel to Godzilla. It's like, wait until after the sequel of Godzilla, then you can do your Star Wars film.
This is a question I've been asking all week. Why is it called Godzilla Minus One? That I couldn't quite. Oh, I was trying to relate the title to the film.
I think it's like a score. You know?
It's because Japan is still the war just literally just ended.
That's what I was thinking. It was related.
So
to
they're at 0. So when Godzilla showed up, it's -1 because of the radiation as well.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's
that, and we'll move on. But that one shot where he shoots, the first major attack of Ginza, and he shoots his atomic breath.
Oh, you muted yourself, Mark.
Yeah, my mic did something weird. But that shot where the first big attack on Ginza and he's looking up at his own atomic breath and the destruction of it, that was a wild shot in a Godzilla movie. Just to see wearing his own
mushroom cloud in the front.
Yeah.
His side profile from behind.
But definitely good stuff. And let's we're going to roll in just a few quick trailers to hit this week, and we might as well roll right into the trailer for Godzilla
wait,
versus...
before we move on, Matt, what was your favorite scene from the movie?
Man, part of me, obviously the ending, just the fight at the end, the dog fight. I really like the plane versus Godzilla, but I kind of like the part where, the Jaws moment and then the battleships just show up and just start shooting the hell out of Godzilla.
Yeah.
And just boom, 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 boom. Godzilla's just fighting back. And they're like, oh, shit, keep running. I thought that was cool because you're like, oh, man, they're hitting them with cannon fire.
Yeah. And you really feel the impact of that, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, man, I thought
that was a really cool scene.
I saw it right over here at Tinseltown. And, man, it was really loud. Like they had it,
Yeah,
that in fact, audio. It was loud. I took Waverly with me, even though she can't read, but I didn't really have anywhere else to take her, and it didn't really cost me anything for a ticket. And she was like, "Daddy, this movie is really loud." I'm like, "Yeah, it is a little bit louder than some other movies."
How about you, Mark? What were your favorite?
Man, I really, it's a terrifying moment, but his initial attack on Ginza is just because you feel the terror of it, and I really thought that was impactful. And when his spikes first light up, that was just like, that was a chilling moment. I thought that was awesome.
The way it creeps up his back.
Something I'd never seen before in a modern Godzilla film or any Godzilla film that I remember. And I thought that was just so cool.
Yeah. There was this one little moment that I wanted to mention earlier. After the Dr. Noda talked about his idea, his two plans to kill Godzilla, which is to sink him really fast and let the ocean crush him. Mm-hmm. And if that doesn't work, where you raise him up really fast
and decompress him,
give him decompression sickness. And he had that body horror look to him. His eyes were bulged out and glazed over white, and you see boils come out of his skin. It was like, oh
when he's all crisping up and
yeah, that was nasty. And then, but the part I wanted to mention was like when they were at that makeshift bar after the whole planning scene.
Mm-hmm.
The senior captain was like, I didn't realize she could come up with an idea like that. But do you think it'll work? And then the scientist says, yeah, but do you have a better idea? And then he says, yeah, your second plan about raising him up, that's even crazy. I don't think that'll work. And then the scientist says, yeah, but do you have a better idea? Better idea? Like the theater laughed at that,
I did think that despite all this destruction and terror of the movie, that the subtle humor and light moments worked extremely well. Because they grounded the film in that reality that despite, like you said, the human spirit, despite all this horror, you got to keep your will up and your spirits up and try to fight back.
Yeah. Yeah, a little Dunkirk moment at the end too, with all the tugboats coming out.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, go ahead, segue, Mark.
But yeah, man, we just got it. It's been a slow news week, but there are some trailers to talk about, and we might as well start with that trailer for the American MonsterVerse, Godzilla vs. Kong: The New Empire. the trailer hit this past week for it, and one thing I've noticed about the internet is it's got Godzilla fans up in a frenzy as to why he has pink spikes, and of course, hardcore Godzilla fans saying this isn't the first time he's had pink spikes, and I'm just over here reading this stuff. I'm like, who cares? It's like I guess like any fan base,
Kong
you have
the Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah, why does Kong have a glove in his hand? Who built this giant glove for Kong? There's so many questions you can ask about this, but like we said, we texted each other. It's great to have a wonderful, amazing movie like Godzilla Minus One, but it's also okay to go watch a movie that's just dumb fun, which looks like what Godzilla vs. Kong 2 is going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. After seeing Minus One, I'm like, okay, now for the
trailer felt a little underwhelming.
Yeah, it was, but I was happy to see it. It's very colorful, that Adam Wingard style of cinematography. But yeah, it's coming out in 4 months. Yeah, it's not a long wait.
Like late March, or I think it's first week of April. It's like April 4th or something. Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, I like his style too. I really like the first Godzilla vs. Kong, and so let's look forward to see what he could do. I was reading some stuff that they had a lot of wild ideas for the sequel, but like I didn't know until you told me that Toho was very strict with the characters they can use and wants to make Legendary pay more money. And apparently he had to back off on a lot of those ideas and kind of redo the script because Toho just wasn't going to allow it. And that kind of sucks, from what I was reading.
It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, they're going to get paid, but but so we'll see where they go with this. It looks fun. It should be a good. We also got our first look at this it feels like they've been talking about this for 3 or 4 years now. I guess with COVID, they probably had, but Amazon Prime's Fallout series.
Looks good.
Finally got our first look at it this week. And we finally got our first look. It looks good.
Yeah. Looks a lot of potential. Before we get back to it, Matt, what was your score on Godzilla Minus One?
That's a friggin' A+, dude.
Oh, A+.
That's an A+. That's as perfect as a movie can get, really. And given its genre too, it's like being able to pull off that. Yeah. It's like just amazing.
I'm starting to see all these critics come out of the woodwork with their own reviews of the film. Well, what was your score for Godzilla Minus One, Mark?
Oh, I mean, it's easily an A+.
Oh, okay.
9.5 out of 10.
Yeah.
I was telling Matt pre-show, we do our top 5 movies in a couple of weeks at the end of the year, and I'm having there's a lot of good ones this year between Spider-Man and Godzilla and Mission Impossible. It's like, I don't know what's going to be number one. It's going to be tough.
Well, yeah, but it's kind of funny. A lot of people are complaining that this year movies have been mediocre with a couple of standouts of what you mentioned. And then like video games have been like having a lot of hits this year. It's like there were a lot of like Cyberpunk's Phantom Liberty came out, and that's really good, and a bunch of Mario games came out, and Resident Evil 4, and there's so many great games this year. Baldur's Gate 3, and But anyways, what was the other trailer you said? Fallout.
We were talking about Fallout. My thing about the Fallout trailer is I think it looked really great. But the odd quirkiness of the video game is very specific, if that makes sense. And in the trailer, it looked a little silly. So hopefully it does come out all right to the audiences because it works in a video game world. But watching the quirkiness in the trailer, I was like, it feels kind of dorky, So we'll see how it translates overall.
Yeah.
But I guess it's coming out, and I think it's like March or April also, the Fallout series, so for the next few months. And then the only other trailer hit this week was the trailer for The Boys Season 4, which has been long awaited for a couple of years, and no release date on this yet. Apparently sometime early next year for The Boys Season 4. And you know anything about The Boys, it looks like more crazy zaniness as that show is. Matt, I know you're a Boys fan like me.
Yeah, man. No, I'm excited for it. I want to see what happens now that Homelander is like getting all this support, even though he's a friggin' monster. And then Jeffrey Dean Morgan is now in it. And so, I think his character is going to be great. No matter, I don't even know what his character is, but I know he's going to do a good job.
The thing about Jeffrey Dean Morgan, I like him, don't get me wrong, but he's kind of the same guy in everything he's in. That's my one thing against him. It's like he's kind of a one trick, he's a smart ass, kind of cocky character in almost every film. It's like, or TV show that he's in.
Yeah. It just depends on the dial, It's like Watchmen turned all the way up,
Negan turned all the way up.
Negan turned all the way up.
The Losers turned all the way up.
Yep. Yeah. Has he ever turned down? Now
he's always kind of the same guy.
Yeah.
Like I watch The Losers and I feel like he's the same. He's like the comedian, only a different character. So it's still a DC movie.
Yeah.
So it's like, he's okay. I like him, but he's just kind of the same guy in every show he's in.
Like a more entertaining Michael Cerna.
When I first saw him, I thought he kind of has a slight resemblance to Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
He does kind of have that resemblance. Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see that. But yeah, so we'll see how he plays into The Boys season 4 when it hits Amazon Prime. All right. Well, man, it feels like we haven't even gotten to today's featured film yet. We a kid-friendly film, which is something we do every now and then, and we felt with the Christmas season, it was a good time to do this movie that came out 1995, I think, for the original Toy Story. And this is the movie that kicked off the Pixar animation studios being released through Walt Disney, and has turned into a completely new era of modern classics through that studio. And these characters now, Buzz and Woody, are ingrained into pop culture as much as Godzilla is, or Spider-Man, or any other popular character we discuss on this show. And it all started with this film. And it's a movie that's, such a simple premise on the surface. It's about when you're not in your bedroom, your toys come to life, and they have adventures, and they have friendships and relationships, and you don't know what they're doing. And when you come in your room, all the toys lay back down, and you had no idea they were playing. Mm-hmm. And what a remarkable idea for a movie, right? And in this movie, Woody is the popular cowboy toy that Andy has been playing with for years, and it's Andy's birthday, though. My goodness, what's going to happen on his birthday? New toys come, right? And we're introduced to the great fancy toy Buzz Lightyear, who's thinks he's a real toy. He doesn't know that thinks he's real. He doesn't know he's a toy, and so him and Woody have a confrontation, and it ends up turning on Woody, and Woody gets thrown out of the house. And then you have the bad kid next door, Sid, who likes to destroy toys. And if you believe Toy Story theorists, Sid's really not a bad kid because he has no idea the toys are alive. He's just playing, Yeah, just like any teenager would do. Like, I'm going to blow up some toys. He doesn't know they're alive. But from a viewer perspective, you think he's an awful kid because these toys are alive, And I thought, I had never read that before. I thought that's a pretty interesting way to look at it.
Yeah, very interesting way to look at it.
But this huge pop culture phenomenon started with this movie, and your guys' initial thoughts on this all-time classic.
I have fond memories of this movie. This movie came out, I was a junior in high school. Yeah, and then I took my girlfriend at that time to go watch it. So I have a very, very fond memories. And then from that point on, I've watched every Toy Story movie that came out in theaters. Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping to God there's not going to be a Toy Story 5, because I do not want to be in a modern theater audience with all these kids ever again.
Yeah.
But that's just the nature of it. So, it's a family movie, so families are going to bring their kids along. So,
well, yeah, whole new generations now.
Yeah, 2 generations worth, basically. Mm-hmm. No, I thought it was a very good movie, very fun, entertaining when it first came out, and it was just groundbreaking for its time, because I've never seen an all CGI movie before. A lot of people haven't. So, yeah, and that was the beginning of the end for 2D animation.
Yeah.
So, How about you, Matt?
Groundbreaking and still holds up very well today.
Yeah. You saw it on your first clamshell edition of the VHS
Oh yeah,
clamshell,
remember that? Yep.
or was it a DVD edition that you saw?
Probably clamshell back then. Yeah, it's 95ish, 96.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about a retro movie, retro media.
That's right. VHS.
There's people listening to this going, "What the fuck is a clamshell VHS?" You know?
Yeah. What is a VHS? No.
Yeah, that too.
Like they don't know what a tape is. But yeah, now we're feeling old talking
I
about
wasn't even
this
10
film.
years old when this came out.
I wasn't. I was 9 and I was in 3rd grade.
Literally was a child.
Yeah. I was a child. I was about as old as my second, born child is now. But yeah, I remember seeing this film and it was really the first of its kind, and it was it was merited that way as well. But yeah, the soundtrack, with the I almost said Kenny Loggins, Randy Newman's, Newman. And him and his slurful voice. You get the friend of me, It's like as slurs his words, but it works. Him and his slurry song, really bring this movie together.
Noticed that, but
yeah. But no, just the emotions
with disabilities.
He's got a lisp like Mike Tyson, except he's not going to knock you out, if you make fun of him. But it's
Mike Tyson just got mentioned during a Toy Story review.
Yeah. But yeah, just the emotion. Now watching it now, it's like the emotions that Woody goes through. He's the supposed leader. So I'm not sure what kind of credentials he has as leader, other than he's the favorite. And then Buzz comes along, and he's just like so angry. He wants to force an accident, like he's one of these mafia guys. Oh, it's a nice toy. It would be a shame if something bad happened to him. You know what I mean? And so stuff happens. Like, whoops. And yeah. And then Sid, man, he's diabolical, man. But you know what? I used to play like that with my toys. I was rough with them, at least. They didn't went exactly like Sid, but I remember me and my...
I believe this.
I had this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle doll. My cousin reminds me of this all the time. He came over, and it was duct taped together. And he asked me what happened. I said, Leonardo cut Shredder in half. And just like, play with the toys really hard. And now that my kids play with it that hard, I'm like, no, man.
That cost me $25.
Yeah, man. And it's different seeing it now. But yeah, I kind of see a little bit where Sid's coming from. But he needed to be scared. You know what? He needed to be scared straight. Mark, you're about what? Same grade as Long whenever you saw this film? Junior? Yeah.
Well, I graduated in 95, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Senior.
I was probably a little bit older, but I know I saw this in theaters. I remember seeing it and just really liking it, at the time. And, didn't think a lot of it, but I remember enjoying the film. And I remember when the sequel came out, I remember thinking, do we need a sequel to a movie like that? Because at the time, animated sequels weren't, that's another thing that's changed. Animated sequels weren't really a thing. Disney was starting to do their direct-to-video thing. They had some direct-to-video sequels of Aladdin and Little Mermaid, but they weren't real successful because they weren't very good.
Yeah.
But animated sequels, Toy Story changed that. I mean, now you have sequels, the Spider-Verse films and Despicable Me and these other movies, but animated sequels, people weren't a thing until Toy Story 2 came out. And I remember thinking that, like, do we need a sequel to it? But now here we are 4 movies later and lots of various shorts. And there was even a Buzz Lightyear TV series and a Lightyear spinoff.
I remember that.
And it all started with this movie, this little movie that I saw when I was a senior in high school or that summer after I graduated. And didn't even think about it being so groundbreaking at the time. I did think the animation was cool. I thought the voice work of Tim Allen and Tom Hanks was brilliant, and all the other actors in this movie. and just an enjoyable film. And it's wild to think that Billy Crystal was asked to voice Buzz Lightyear and he turned it down.
Yeah.
And because he thought, and then he says it's one of the biggest mistakes he ever made in his career.
And then I think it fell to Chevy Chase, and then Chevy Chase turned it down as well.
Yeah.
Right.
I wouldn't want Chevy Chase to play.
But now you can't imagine anybody but Tom and Tim doing this. I mean, it's
exactly
their voices are iconic with these characters.
Well, for Tim, you can have Chris Evans now.
Chris Evans.
Because of that Lightyear movie.
The Lightyear movie, yeah. With him and Tio Wakini.
Taika Waititi.
Taika Waititi.
And Tim Allen's favorite line as Buzz is, "You're a sad, strange little man, and you have my pity." It's just funny because I say that to the kids all the time. Only I change it a little bit. I'm like, "You're a strange little man, I pity you."
I like it whenever Woody says Mr. Lightbeer. I feel like that's one of those times where Disney threw in a little joke for the.
Well, I rewatched this just yesterday. I sat with Waverly. She wanted to watch it with me, and I wanted to rewatch it for the podcast. And it's legitimately a funny movie. It has really funny moments. It holds up well. The jokes still play well. Almost 30 years later, it's the animation holds up really well, and it was absolutely groundbreaking at the time. But it still looks as good today as it did then. I
love the whole blooper reel thing at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the fake bloopers.
Mm-hmm. That was good. I love how every Toy Story movie always starts with an action sequence with the toys, and I kind of forgot about this one. Starts out with a little action sequence before Andy comes in the room, and they all have to play. Well, not play dead, but play back to sleep. It's cool to see all the retro toys in the movies, and they come to life, like Potato Head and the little Slinky dog and all that stuff. I think it was cool. And over the years, they would slowly add other retro toys to the different storylines. I thought was always neat. The funny story is they originally wanted Barbie in this movie, but Mattel said no. Of course, Mattel came around after it was successful and like, oh yeah, you can use, what was it, part 3? Or
part 3.
Yeah. Oh, you can use Barbie now, because they realized how successful the movies were.
Oh yeah.
But Mattel didn't want to do it at first. Thought that was pretty interesting, and she was going to be Woody's love story instead of Bo Peep.
We say successful. To put that in perspective, worldwide, this movie was $30 million. It made over 13 times its budget back worldwide. Friggin' crazy. Usually we say successful and it's like, man, it made 3-4 times its money back. This thing fucking, 13 times plus over. And the thing's still making money today.
I think I read based on inflation, it'd be like the number 1 or 2 biggest animated film of all time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
That's wild. And the first animated film to be directed in the adapted screenplay at the Oscars. And then I don't know if they had best animated film back then or not. Probably not. That seems a little. No.
It was best screenplay, right?
It has to be it was pretty groundbreaking.
Nominated for 3 Oscars: Special Writing for Screenplay, Best Original Song, and Best Music. So it had. So I don't think the animated award was that seems like late 90s when they had the first animated Oscar.
Yeah,
that seems right. But absolutely groundbreaking movie. And it's crazy how such a phenomenon this has become. I mean, like I think we did in our little preview at the end of last week's episode. Our grandparents know who Buzz and Woody are. They're known across the world from people. It's one of those rare modern occurrences. And when I say modern, I always think like 1990 and up. To have a modern character that's embraced across pop culture that wasn't created in the 1950s or 60s. And there's only very few that are the Toy Story characters, Harley Quinn, maybe Ahsoka Tano, that these characters are becoming pop culture phenomenons with these newer creations that have crossed over to other generations and across the world. And that's pretty wild. And, just when you think like, oh, Hollywood doesn't create any new ideas. I mean, they still are. There's still new characters that are being created and becoming very popular across the world. And Buzz and Woody are right there, in 1995. And, there's some talks lately. Tim Allen has been saying that, that there has been some talks about a 5th one because him and Tom have told the studio, hey, if you're going to do it, you got to do it soon. We're not getting any younger.
Exactly.
And even though I felt I felt 3 was an amazing send off. I felt 4 was a good send off. And I think if you do a 5th one, it doesn't have to be about Andy's children. It has to be. That's got to be the route you go. And they're playing with his old toys. I mean, and Tim Allen even said that. And I thought when Tim Allen said that, I'm like, that's brilliant. That has to be the direction you take if you do a 5th one. There feels like, after him saying that, it feels like there's no other way. If it's not about Andy as an adult and his kids, then you completely defeat the point doing a 5th one, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's the only way to bring it back around, and include Andy in there.
Yeah, make it full circle. And if they do it, I'll be there to see it. I'll go. I've enjoyed this franchise quite a bit over the years, and it's been a good one. Do y'all have a favorite Toy Story movie?
2.
Really?
2's my favorite.
See, I find 2 the weakest.
Nah.
The opening scene with
weakest as to what? Cool. Like, because we're talking about very, very good quality movies here.
Oh yeah. It's
yeah.
He means weakest out of the 4.
I like 2 because it was the funniest.
I
think 2 is the funniest. Yeah.
I like 3 the best, I think.
Yeah. And I sat in the theater full of people watching part 2, and it was like definitely one of the most entertaining experiences I had with an audience as well. That's why. I mean, yeah, the whole theater was laughing when they did a Jurassic Park spoof with Rex chasing after the toy car, and the whole cheesy "I'm your father" thing.
Star Wars spoof,
Star Wars spoof on
Zurg.
there. Yeah.
I mean, I like 2 too. I just always felt like it was a little bit weaker than the other ones.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. This is an incredible series of movies. None of them are bad at all.
Yeah. The opening scene in part 2 is so well done when Buzz is doing the rescue mission.
Is that the one with the train and Ham is flying over him?
I'm trying to remember. He's flying through space.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So in that one, and I'm trying to remember what the climax was for part 2. Oh yeah, and Jesse, as a character.
The climax is at the airport.
Yeah.
They're trying to keep him from flying to Japan. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So.
Introduced Jesse, a really good character.
Yeah, and then the villains come up. It's at the end where he ends up wearing the chicken suit.
Oh
yeah. There's just a lot of great things in that going through that film. Part 3, I've only seen it once for some reason, and
part 3 is the emotional one with them. They don't look like they're going to die. Then they're given to the little girl, and Andy has to let go of his toys, and everyone's sobbing at the end of the movie.
And you think that the bear would have a turnaround,
right?
But he didn't. He doubles down on his evilness, and you never ever see that, really, hardly ever. When the villain gets a chance to redeem himself, and this time they don't.
Yep.
Right.
Stayed evil. Yeah. And then 4 was about just moving on, and grow. Even the toys had to grow up a little bit,
I mean, I remember Tom Hanks saying that he was emotional recording some voice scenes for part 4, and it was like, well, you want to come back, that kind of cheapens the emotion of it a little bit, don't it? So
right. Yeah.
But it's all, if he wants to keep doing it, let him. It's easy money for them, so.
Oh yeah. And then the spinoff Buzz Lightyear was okay. It was nothing spectacular, but it was all right. It felt a little unnecessary, And I've said this before. I think with Lightyear, if you had done a prequel and kept it in the same animation style and made it familiar to people, it probably would have been more successful. But when you go and you make it look different and just not look as kid friendly and look as familiar, people weren't sure what to make of it. They're like, I don't know, So I think that was a lot of its downfall to its success. I don't think the movie was terrible. It just wasn't familiar to people.
And then I felt like the comedy was, wasn't there.
Right.
Making sandwiches backwards, to where the meat's on the outside and the bread's on the inside, and that's like one of your comedic moments.
Well, what about making Buzz an asshole? He keeps trying to do the thing at the beginning of the movie, and where his friend gets older and older, and she's almost dead because he's obsessed.
Yeah,
like damn, Buzz is a jerk.
Yeah, he's not super likable in that film. Right. That's for sure.
He was always a bit of a conceited as a toy, but he wasn't a jerk.
And all of a sudden, you make him a jerk. He ends up being the bad guy.
Yeah.
So you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
One of my favorite Toy Story moments of all time, though, is Buzz's Spanish mode. I thought that was hilarious in part 3.
Well, that's in 3, yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably the strongest comedic part of 3. And then he's just like wooing Jessie with his accent and his salsa dancing and his bravado.
Yeah.
His Mexican bravado.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. But what a phenomenal series of films, and and it all started with the classic from 1995. It also started a studio. I mean, Pixar was an animation division that was owned by Lucasfilm that wasn't doing anything with it, so they sold it to Disney. And crazy how that happened, and Disney turned it into another empire of theirs.
Yeah.
And you think what we got from Toy Story to Monsters Inc. to other successful franchises, Wall-E, things that Pixar have done over the years. It's quite wild. And in the last couple of years, Soul was one of the absolute best films the last 2 or 3 years, and that was Pixar.
Yeah.
And Inside Out and Elemental, I actually really kind of enjoyed. That was a good movie. So, and it's wild, man. It all started with Toy Story in 1995. But that's all I got on Toy Story. If anybody else has anything,
I give it an A.
Oh, it's an A. Yeah.
Oh, all-time classic. A for all-time classic.
Yeah.
And so next week, I guess we'll preview next week's film. We started this journey 2 years ago as we started covering the Lord of the Rings trilogy with the Fellowship of the Ring, and then last year the Two Towers. And it's funny, we had toyed with the idea of doing all 3 of them back-to-back weeks, and then we're like, well, we'll probably still be podcasting for a few more years. Let's just do one a year at Christmas time, which is when they came out in theaters.
Exactly.
We're only going to finish that journey this year when we next week when we cover the Oscar-winning Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King.
The eye of the enemy is moving. The end has come.
Every day, Frodo moves closer to Mordor. How do we know Frodo is alive? What does your heart tell you?
Come, Master. Come to Smeagol.
This is your test. Every path you have trod through wilderness, through war, has led to this road.
The enemy will never let Aragorn come to the throne of Gondor.
It is time. Give him the sword of the king.
Become who you were born to be.
The precious baby eyes.
He means to murder us!
I'm not sending him away. Come to me.
The order said that. The pieces are moving.
He is here.
We come to it at last.
I see in your eyes the same fear that would take the heart of me. A day may come when the courage of men fails. When we forsake our friends and break all bonds of fellowship. But it is not this day.
Whatever happens, stay with me.
This day, we fight!
All you have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to you.
We shall see the Shire again.
You gave away your life's grace. I cannot protect you anymore. We cannot achieve victory through strength of arms. Not for ourselves,
But we can give Frodo a chance.
I forgot that the extended version is 4.5 hours long. I've already started watching it because it's going to take me a goddamn all week to finish this movie because it's so long. But it's maybe not my favorite. I think I lean towards the Two Towers, but this one won all the awards because, let's be honest, they were giving Peter Jackson Lifetime Achievement Awards for the success of the trilogy. And I think that's why Return of the King won a lot of the awards. But it doesn't mean it's not a remarkable film in its own right. The whole trilogy is fantastic. Yeah. We're going to finish it up next week. I think the only thing that bothers me a little bit watching it in 4K is that some of the CGI looks like it was done in 2003 in 4K. 4K. It's funny if you watch old movies in 4K, they look remarkable. They're cleaned up. They look brand new. But postmodern movies, sometimes it's like, okay, maybe they should not be in 4K because the CGI shows up too much. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Kind of that era between like 1995 and like 2015, before 4K was a thing. Got about that 20-year period where the movies just don't quite look right in 4K.
There's a sweet spot. You've got to use that 4K enhancement.
Not that it looks bad in 4K, but it's just like there's a part in Return of the King I was watching the other day, and it's when Erwin has the vision of her child, and the child is running across the field, and it clearly looks like the kid is running in front of a matte CGI green board, and I'm like, wow, that's kind of rough, and it's just the 4K process, I guess, made it stand out more. So I'm being nitpicky, I know, but Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, remarkable film, and we are going to talk it next week on the show, finish out the trilogy.
There we go.
But until then, the RebelRadioPodcast.com for all your Rebel Radio needs. Long, thanks for joining us and bringing your Godzilla expertise in. It's always welcome, because I know you're such a huge fan of that franchise. And man, I've become a bigger fan over the last few years. I've always liked Godzilla. I've watched movies over the years here and there, but I've found myself watching more in the last few years, especially since Wyatt really enjoys them.
Yeah.
I've watched Tokyo War or Tokyo SOS, Final Wars. I told you recently I watched Godzilla 2000. I had never seen it before. So I've been finding myself watching more and getting caught up on that franchise,
Fell into a rabbit hole, huh?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
I actually really liked Godzilla 2000. I thought it was kind of a fun movie,
Yeah.
And there's some really good cinematography in that movie, honestly.
Yeah. The director's one of his biggest his favorite Godzilla movie is Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, All Monsters All Out Attack from 2001.
Mm-hmm.
That I highly recommend that one. That one's where Godzilla's super evil.
Yeah. I think me and Wyatt watched that one. That was good too. Yes.
Yeah. And all three monsters are trying to take him down.
Mm-hmm.
So,
it's crazy. Like watching Godzilla and be watching more of their films the last few years. It's even given me a little bit. I know the '98 Roland Emmerich film is not well liked by a lot of people, but it's kind of like giving me a little more respect for it, because I think they were just trying something different and audiences didn't buy it. And it exists. It is what it is.
I don't hate it as much as I used to.
If you watch it as just a dumb monster movie, it's fine.
Yeah. I prefer that Emmerich movie over the recent trilogy, the anime trilogy, which
those were so boring. I tried to watch those.
Garbage. How do you make Godzilla boring? I was like,
pretty hard to do.
Yeah. And then the Godzilla TV anime series was a big disappointment too.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of that, kind of get into it.
Yeah, it was like, what the hell? What's this dialogue? It's like, okay, because they hired a physicist to write that show.
But
okay.
At the moment, though, at least Godzilla fans are eating at the buffet real good right now.
Oh yeah,
I highly recommend going to see Godzilla Minus One if you get a chance. And I heard that Amazon Prime has already bought the streaming rights for the U.S. That they want the movie, and so it should be on Prime.
I want the physical copy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's a must buy for me. But if people are being patient waiting, I think Amazon sometime in March or April is going to have it streaming. It's what I've read. So so good stuff. And if you're waiting for an English dub, don't, because the director already said they're not doing it. They're going to keep this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he said they intend this to stay in the original language, which has become a thing lately. A lot of foreign films over the last few years aren't doing as many English dubs as they used to because it just costs extra money they don't need to spend. You know?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that's what I heard. So, all right.
Well, I'll do my own dubbing.
But
try not to be offensive with it with Japanese accents or something.
Oh, that's funny. And,
you have dishonored my family.
But you know, they've gotten better with the dubbing than they used to, though. Like now, you know, the mouths don't keep moving quite as long as they used to. They have gotten better with it. But
yeah,
I prefer watching them film in its original language if I can. You know?
I agree.
I think it just sounds better. It's a better experience. And but I also understand people are hard of hearing or hard of seeing why they would want an English dub version. You know, that's fine too. You know, so to each their own. All right, man. Well, that's all we got. Thank you, everyone, for listening. As always, this has been Mark.
This has been Matt.
This is Long.
And remember, as always, just go there and do it.